Hi, and welcome to the CAFMA Connect. I'm your host, Fire Chief Scott Freitag, and with me today, once again, is not John Fenema, our reluctant co-host. He has once again weaseled his way out of being here. No, actually, we're very privileged today to have with us the new director of the Prescott Regional Communications Center, Jim DeLung.
Correct.
Jim, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And I got the name right.
You did.
Correct? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not that hard to pronounce, and yet sometimes I just have difficulty with words.
Funny story behind it. I'll tell you about that later.
I'd like to
It's a
hear
misspell.
it. So you're brand new. How long have you been with PRCC now?
2 weeks in a day. So a whole 2 weeks in a day, and I found your building, so I'm thrilled about that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's not bad coming from Prescott to here and
Correct.
finding the right place. And this one's a little bit hidden since nobody's here generally on this side. So, Jim, before we start talking about PRCC, we want to learn more about you because I think it's always good for people to understand who you are, have the personal background. So you said that you were brought here against your will at 5 years old to live in Phoenix.
Correct.
So where were you born and how did you make your way to Arizona?
I was actually born in a small town, Lompoc, California.
Okay.
Vandenberg Air Force Base because my father was assigned there. And then when he got out of the Air Force in the probably mid-'60s, he became a police officer in Lompoc. And then so a few years later, along came I, and then my parents moved to Glendale in 1976. And I have been there, except for my short stint for my undergrad at NAU. I've been there the entire time in the desert.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
So graduated in Glendale, and what did you study at NAU?
So I graduated from Cactus High School in Glendale, Arizona. Went up to NAU and went through a myriad of things. Ended up going to the Marine Corps. Got injured at OCS India Company in 1991. I was pre-med for a little while. Then I switched to pre-law so that I could do the Marine Corps JAG stuff. Got hurt. Now that I'd taken all of these law classes, what was I going to do? Well, I went to school on a scholarship. I wasn't paying for law school. And so my dad was a cop. You know what? I'll be a cop. So I kind of fell into it. And so in 93, when I graduated from NAU, we were in a recession and people trying to find jobs and where could you do it? Well, I was lucky to have a mentor up there at Flagstaff Medical Center where I was working, and he was a retired lieutenant out of the Phoenix Police Department, and he advised that I go there. Well, the story goes I was actually testing with 9 different agencies at the same time, kind of the shotgun approach, and I was asked by Phoenix PD, are you applying elsewhere? And my response was, yes, you're the 9th, and they said, where do you want to work? I said, whomever hires me first gets my loyalty. Well, 2 weeks later, I'm pushing a broom as a pre-hire in our evidence area. Yeah, cleaning building desks and shelves and literally laying carpet so that I could be a pre-hire prior to going to the academy in May of 1994.
Okay. When did you hit the street?
I hit the street. So it's funny. I was hired 4/4/94, graduated the academy 9/9/94, and went to my first squad on 12/12/94. So literally to be able to remember that, it's just unique. And I was downtown. I worked downtown in the Garfield district, Por eso hablo español. That's why I speak Spanish.
Okay.
And being able to be down there with those folks, and then I did a myriad of projects throughout my career.
And you retired after 20 years?
I did 20 years, 12 days, and I want credit for the 12 days.
Got it. Understood. 20 years and 12 days.
Very different than the fireside. So, yes, I want credit for my 12 days.
I understand. And what was your rank when you retired from
I'm a retired sergeant.
Retired sergeant. Okay. Now, I noticed there's some additional letters in front of your name.
In front of or after?
Well, I thought there was some in front of it. Wasn't it doctor?
It is, yes. Well, it depends where you do it. So, so don't get excited. I didn't bring my rubber gloves. It's a different kind of doctor.
Gotcha.
So it's so I have my PhD in business administration, specifically in organizational leadership.
Okay. Where'd you get that from?
From North Central University, which was actually founded here in Prescott Valley and has since moved over to San Diego.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
The giant empty building.
Giant empty building.
The giant empty building. I like that giant empty building.
That was the huge servers that they used for all of the classes.
Okay. We actually looked at that, or I wanted to look at that to see if it was for sale when we bought our admin building.
Small
because
world.
I'm like, well, that's a big building.
Right. Small world.
We put up, we'd have a view of everything from there, but it didn't make sense for our smaller size agency to
it's
be
a
in
big
there.
Building.
So did you go to school online or in person?
I did online, and so my master's degree is out of NAU as well. It's the leadership program, and then because I was assigned, I have a very unique career at Phoenix Police Department. sorry, allergies now that I've come up here in your wings.
I understand.
So thank you.
Yes.
I spent half my career with the Phoenix Police Department assigned to the state of Arizona.
Okay.
So I was the advanced training supervisor for all 15,000 cops in the entire state of Arizona. Okay. So I was assigned to Arizona Post, if you're familiar with Arizona Peace Officer Standards and Training. So we have the compliance side, which we lovingly call the badge grinding squad side, and then I was the training side. So over there, I had a staff of folks who were unbelievably good people. We did training all over the state. So literally, I've traveled from Page to Nogales, from St. John's to Lake Havasu, and everywhere in between for almost 11 years. I did that.
Wow.
And so that's what was great. This actually is a good segue for here. What's great about that is I know thousands of police officers, command police officers around the entire state of Arizona. Okay. And having done that, what we did is I developed a program with Krista Chant, who's now out of AFMA. Right. And we developed, he and I kind of hit it off. It's kind of my smoke eater brother on the other side, right? Right. So it's we hit it off, and we started developing programs of leadership for the fire side, the fire sciences. And so I will share with your audience and you is out of my ignorance and not knowing, we on the police side, when we think fire, we think constant training, we think of all that. Well, what was told to me and what I learned is that most of your training, if not all of it, is operational. Yes. How to pull a plug, all of those things. And I learned that the personal development side, it exists, but it's not in the volume of which that you do all of your emergency services. So that was unique. So what happened is Chief DeChant, he took the curriculum from the International Association of Chiefs of Police Leadership in Police Organizations program, which was actually an adoption. You've heard of it. It's the West Point Leadership Program. Okay. So that was adopted for police. He took it and he put fire terminology, vernacular, and so we would have the ability to teach any. So what happened is at the state of Arizona, we ended up opening up our classes to half the fire side and half the police side. Where I'm going with this very short story into a very long story is what was great about me coming up here is I already had established relationships. I would literally say with hundreds of people in this area from police and some actual fire. Danny Johnson, who's down now in Verde Valley. Yeah. He was at Daisy Mountain, and Chief Johnson, he put on leadership supervisory classes at Daisy Mountain that I and Krista Chant would run for him for years. And so we would do, in fact, some of the folks up here before it was CAFMA, with the Yavapai, would drive all the way down there to take our supervisory class. So I've been doing a lot of that, trying to get on both sides, because what's great about Arizona is our relationships. Between, our joke is we always wanted to try and put NYPD and FDNY in the same room together and see if we could do a class. Happen? Yeah, just for giggles. And but here in Arizona, it's been great to be able to put those leadership classes on from anything from basic supervision all the way up to the command level. Right.
Well, I think the great thing in Arizona is that fire and police have those relationships. And I've talked about it coming from Missouri, looking at the fire service side. I've been very impressed at the relationship statewide just with fire. But if you look at our partnerships with our law enforcement partners, and this is a good spot to say we support our law enforcement here.
Thank you.
Absolutely, we support them, and we will back them up on the street all day long. But we have those relationships where you can put us in a room and have a leadership conversation, and it works very well. To your point on the fire side, I just want to bring this up because I work for a company called Career Survival outside of the fire department. Okay. And the owner is Eric Rossoff. He's a retired lieutenant from the Burbank Police Department. And his story is internal affairs, Burbank, when the firefighter Bill of Rights was passed in the state of California. So overnight, because of his expertise on the police side, he became an expert of the fire side because it was the same thing. And so fire departments were reaching out to him and saying, hey, can you help us with this through this process? And he said there was a theme that I was seeing on the fire side, and that was that these were good people who had a bad day. And he said, on the fire side, you teach sets and reps for operations. We're not doing the same thing on the administrative side, and it's hurting the profession, and we're losing good people every day across the United States because of dumb things. So I know for CAFMA, at least, we've put an emphasis on the leadership side. We developed the Senior Leadership Academy, which is now morphed into, from the Arizona Fire Chiefs Association, I'm running a committee, and we're putting together the Fire Chiefs Academy for the state that'll be run through the Arizona Fire Chiefs Association. Okay. And then we're developing another new leadership academy specific for CAFMA. So I'll have to reach out to you because we're looking for, on the CAFMA side, we don't want just my voice or just Chief Fetima's voice or Jonah's voice. Okay. We need outside perspective. Okay. And we really promote that here, and that's that global thinking. Okay. Don't just take training from us. Don't just take training in the Valley. Spread your wings, go out, compare, contrast, see what you can find, bring it back here. Let's see what fits. If you find something that we could improve on, great. A lot of times they come back and say, you know what, we're doing a good job in these areas, but we could adjust this. So that's great because now I know you're a resource that we can reach out to. Because the other side of that is now that you're in PRCC, and I talked to Chief Amy Bonney with Prescott Police Department and said, you know, we open up classes that are non-ops to our non-ops people. Okay. So it's leadership programs through the National Fire Academy, whatever. Would your dispatchers want the opportunity to attend some of those? Puts a face with a name. People get to know each other.
Absolutely.
They bring back different ideas and thoughts and integrate that into their team. Now I need to give the training division. So Eric and Dustin, I need to get you a new email address.
Sure.
But get that for there. So going back to focusing on you, you were retired for a number of years.
I was.
Teaching. And when I brought your name up here, there were several people that said, I know him. He's awesome.
Took my class.
Yeah. They were in your
very
class.
Kind. I appreciate it.
Yeah. They said, oh, man, we really like him. When Lieutenant Kaufman from PVPD called, obviously, I've known Jason for a long time. And so when he calls and says something, I question it immediately.
Absolutely.
Which is what anybody should do if Kaufman's telling you something. Absolutely.
Okay.
So, Jason, this is for you. You know I love you, brother. But he said, hey, I'd really like you to speak with this guy. Okay. He's a great person. And then as your name got out more,
I appreciate it.
People were talking about, hey, I've been in his leadership programs. They're fantastic. So what made you decide to kind of shift a little bit from focusing on the teaching and looking at the PRCC director position? What sparked an interest in you?
There's a lot to that answer, and it's funny because that was one of the questions in the final board. First and foremost, the community here, and again, this is not a board question, so there's no reason for me to come up with any other answer than the truth. It's not like I'm trying to get promoted or anything else. I've been trying to get to Prescott for years. The community. I've been coming up here for 16 years. I've been coming up here for the Christmas tree. I come up for almost every 4th of July for either the rodeo, and we do the parade. A lot of the events that already exist, I've been coming up for years and years because my father-in-law lives up here.
Okay.
And so it just made it easy that we would, it's almost like a home away from home.
Right.
And coming up here and being part of the community and the amazing restaurants and some of the other things that happen. I've already been to Rotary Club meetings. I'm going to Kiwanis. The Rotary was at 6:30 in the morning, so I might be looking at a different club.
Right.
I was retired for 7 years, if you will.
I understand. 6:30 is early.
It is. And so what was cool about that is the opportunity to then come to a community that I already felt like I was not an insider, but I knew some of the stuff, some of the players and the people. Lots of friends up here. The Sheriff Dave Rhodes is I call him my breakfast buddy. We did breakfast for years after doing leadership training together. So the opportunity to come up here and leave the 45 years of desert behind, which, I have great memories and it built who I am. I got to be a part of that community.
Right.
Secondly, I will say out loud, because how the dialogue went, how I saw the job posting and being able to speak with one of my colleagues, Chief Amy Bonney, is my just insane respect, implicit trust in somebody like her. And also then I get to speak to you. I spoke to, like I was telling you before, 16 people before I did my interview because I wanted to get a litmus test of the history. I went all the way back to Chief Dave Benner from 2005, all the way to I spoke to Chief Debbie Black from the most recent, all the way up. And to hear every single person say the same thing was there are amazing people in there. And what they're looking for is stability and consistency. And that's not a hit on anybody that was there before. And what I've been saying is in defense of, say, the lieutenants that have been there over the years, including Amy Bonney, is it was one of their job functions. And so when you have the dispatch center, you have, and I'm just throwing these out there, community relations or SWAT and all these other things, your time is parceled out to which that you can get to where you need to be. And so my marching orders are very, very clear. It's to get in there. It's to create a stability. It's to create a consistency, to create an environment of leadership based on not just my education, but my experience and the areas and the folks that I've been able to be influenced by as well as influence. But they want that created there. And with 30 folks that are there, we've got 4 people in the pipeline now for hiring, which I'm really excited about. They have earned that. They have earned that right. And now the truth of the matter is, though, Chief, that's on me. It's not on them. They have seen the people come and go. It's now on me. It's my obligation to prove it to them that consistency, that stability. And so I'm working split shifts. I'm going in at night and I'm working. I was just there last night. And so it's real hard to supervise, as you know, a 24/7. And the way that we split our shifts, it makes sense for me to be able to work some split shifts. And it's really more to go in there and just to understand the culture. My job is to understand the people, to understand the Prescott Valley, the CAFMA, the Prescott Fire, all of the Walker. I was just out at Walker yesterday, and I'm meeting with Groom Creek in a couple of days. So with all of our partners that are involved, it's important for me to put my foot out there. It's not the other way around because you have seen this before. This is episode 6 or 8 or 9. And so it's my job.
Episodes.
It really is. And so that's why they've earned the right, if you will, to have that consistent leadership in there. You know, in the rumor mill and everything else, we hear you're only going to be here for a few months, but I understand that because they've seen it before. So I told them, I said, I'm hanging stuff up on my wall. So, and my joke now is I am on probation, so we'll see how this works out for a year. But that's my goal. And so what I've done immediately is I'm sitting down and I'm reading our policy manual of, 1,000 pages, line by line, word by word, page by page, because first and foremost, what a great way for me to learn about the SOPs, just the specificities, if you will, of how that works. But at the same time, I'm taking it, printing it, and going to one supervisor or another dispatcher, both fire and police side, and saying, explain this to me, and is this the best practice? Because when it comes to policy, if you're not doing what policy says, there's 2 opportunities there. It's either get the person in line with the policy, or I told every single person in the entire PRCC, you have the opportunity to change policy. If we find that it delivers better service, it's not just efficient, but it's effective for the community, the end user, and then the partners as well, then let's change it. Let's make that work. And that's your philosophy that you were just saying before about sending your people out for training. It's best practices.
Well, and I mean, it's the same thing here with CAFMA, right? So we have, I don't even know how many different policies and pages of policy, and we follow the accreditation model where you have to review those every so often. And even still, we'll go back and find a policy and say, wow, that made sense when we read it. But now that we have to apply it, it doesn't actually make sense. We need to make a change. And so we've done some of that through COVID. We've looked at a couple of different policies. So one of them was we hire a new person in, and then they start accruing sick time right away, but they don't have it. They start accruing it. And what we were finding was we were hiring new people in, and a young firefighter has a young wife who's pregnant, and now we've got to go out and ask everybody to donate vacation time so they can get sick time off. And then when we were looking at COVID, when that first kicked off, we're saying, okay, so if somebody has to go home or has to stay out because of COVID, and it's 14 days
per federal law,
how do we address this? And before they did anything with federal law, so we went back in and said, okay, 2 things need to happen. One, No one that is out sick related to COVID is being charged sick time, period. Okay. No one's getting charged. And there was no cap on it.
Okay.
But the other thing was, you know what? Let's front load a new employee's sick time. They're not going to accrue it over the first year because we're going to front load it. And then on their anniversary date, they start accruing.
Perfect.
But that gives them a cushion for either the known or unknown as they go through. But like you, hey, does this work in practice or does it work in theory? Mm-hmm. And so we've taken a number of policies recently, and fortunately in my position, I can just write an administrative directive that says this is changing.
Right.
And then
mine's a blue pen.
Yeah. Then we change the policy and we take it to the policy committee and it goes to the board and we explain why we're recommending this and we make things happen. But I think what you describe as working, the split shifts where you're going in the evenings, to me, that just highlights what you bring to the table as far as leadership.
Thank you.
In my opinion, because those folks want to talk to someone.
Correct.
You can dispel the rumors. You can make that connection and show them that they're important. And I don't know that they've always felt that way. Okay. And I'm not putting that on. Okay. I'm not putting that on the city of Prescott. I'm not putting that on the lieutenants that were in there. I'm saying as a whole, as a collective, as all of the partners, I don't know that we've done as good a job as we should in providing them that positive feedback, saying, hey, you're important to everything that we do. We care about you. What can we do to help? Instead, a lot of times it's, hey, this call went south. We need to follow up on it.
Right.
Well, how about calling and saying, hey, this call went really well. Thank you.
Well, and as you and I discussed that before, I'm glad you brought that up, is I know it's not unique to the PRCC at all. This is kind of systemic with regards to most dispatch or 911 centers, because I've spoken at APCO, I've spoken at NENA, I've trained, I've done all sorts of stuff, but it sounds like most dispatch centers, they feel like they're almost like an add-on to the public safety, when the truth is the true first responders are the people who pick up the phone.
Right.
The definition of first is right there.
Right.
And so by picking up the phone, either it's a EMD, some sort of medical thing going on, it's some sort of police situation going on, or the truth be told, there are very important questions that we are fielding that are non-emergency as well.
Right.
And so with all of that that's there, the stress can add up. And one of my things is, stressful calls occur, we will be policing each other. This is not just a supervision tool. This is when you see your colleague, your partner, whatever, going through our hearing, because we may be doing so many things at once that a supervisor could miss that.
Right.
That it's our job. Again, I love the word. It's our obligation to have that person step out, take a walk around, go get some coffee, something along the lines, and then let's talk about it. The ability to be able to de-stress immediately, because I don't want them taking that home.
No.
It's impossible to say it's not going to happen.
Sure.
But that is so important, because it is a job that I have not done. I was assigned post 9/11. I was the Tactical Operations Center for the entire city of Phoenix for all things terrorism. So I was assigned to our dispatch center for 6 months, and we worked all together. But that was kind of taking up a seat. I didn't do their job. And so I'm looking at some of the training that they're doing so I can even sit through it, observe it, and identify. I'm asking lots of questions, and what's great is how well it's being received, or it perceives from me to be.
Right.
What is that button? Who is this? What is that noise? And they're really, really good with telling me that, because that's not my area of expertise. My area of expertise is people. My area of expertise is systems, organizations. So all of that combined is, are we delivering the best service that we can to the community? And I think they really are. Are there things that we can look at with regards to policy? Yes. And how I'm learning that immediately is the college just came in with their accreditation partner, which is funny because it was the chief from U of A, and I knew him as well. Okay. And so he comes in, and, we hug, haven't seen you in a few years. And what's nice to know is that with your accreditation you already brought up, with theirs and everybody else's, we at the PRCC must support that. So when it comes to your times, when it's comes to how fast a button is clicked, and I'm learning all this, to the fact that when we extract those statistics, are they accurate? And in that accuracy, are they meeting your needs for your accreditation? So it's not just us at Prescott, it's also Prescott Valley, and then the 4 fire services that are involved with that too. So I'm asking everybody that's involved, do you have an accreditation? I just went out to Walker. His is ISO. And is there anything in there that we need to do to help support? And he said they actually just came in there, and everything we were doing gave them the great credibility that ISO was looking for to be able to give them the 8B or whatever level I believe he was telling me about yesterday. So we need to be able to continue to support that. But this is why I wanted to do this. I know you did too, to be able to get face-to-face, meet each other, and figure this out. Because I'd rather you had my cell phone and said, well, let me just text Jim.
Yes.
Rather than say, well, when I get to the next meeting, I'll deal with the director. Right. No, send me a text and we'll look into whatever it is that we may or may not be able to do for you.
Well, and we were accredited at one time, and then we created CAFMA, so we have to go through it again.
Okay.
We were going to do that, then COVID.
Right.
So we're delayed. But I think this is good that we're having this conversation, because now that got me thinking, you know what? As we start looking at these accreditation standards, especially as we start looking at the statistical data and the parts of it that deal directly with PRCC, my intention now is just to call you direct and say, hey, we're going to start looking at this. Will you come sit with us and let's go through what these standards look like. Let's talk about this in advance so that we're on the same page of what we're looking for.
And what's great is we have everything in Lexipol now. And so it makes it so nice. So for me to review even our own policy, line by line, word by word, it's all online. It's printable, it's PDFable.
Right.
So if that's something that you needed, and Rob Martin, the PRCC manager, just took care of all of that for the college. Okay. And so as we were there in that meeting, Rob was able to take those notes, go right back, hit print, and hand them out to the accrediting body, which would be IACLIA. Theirs is a little bit different, colleges and universities and whatnot. And so it worked out really, really well for them that what we were already doing in place with the college met that accreditation process. So,
well, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is that we are a partner agency with PRCC. Right. We have some input, but we don't have say. So when we look at the dispatch center as it relates to accreditation, all we can tell the accrediting body, or what we've been able to tell them to this point, is, well, this is what it is. If there's infrastructure issues or other problems or challenges, we can ask, we can provide input, but we have no say over it. And I think over the years, though, since I've been here, what I've seen is there was a definite rift when I arrived 7.5 years ago.
Okay.
There had been some issues with CYFD and a former chief there with PRCC. And so one of the first things I did, and Amy Bonney was the lieutenant in PRCC at the time.
Right.
So I reached out to her. I'm like, I went in there, I met her, met some of the dispatchers. I'm like, would you come out and just talk to our folks? I think that's so important. If you can come out and talk to them so that we can get an understanding of what you're doing, and then you can understand what their vision is or what they're seeing, the challenges they believe they have in the field. And we did that, and that started a great relationship with Amy. As a matter of fact, this is another point for a plug. City of Prescott, you should just go ahead and make Amy the police chief, in my opinion. I don't run the city. I'm just saying.
I agree, but I'm on probation, so I'll leave it alone from here.
Yeah, I'm not on probation, so I can. I'm just going to say that Amy's a great person. We went through PAL together and had a great relationship. But we've spent the last 7.5 years really rebuilding that relationship, trying to support PRCC, the dispatchers, the command staff. And so the relationship, from my perspective, has changed dramatically from where it was then to where we are today. Good. And I think we continue down that path. Now, we continue to work as a partner, saying, hey, look, if you need to upgrade this or that or whatever, just tell us, because we need to ensure that we have the best system available.
It's good to know.
And if that means we have to pay more money, then we'll pay more money. We just want to make sure that the system is functional. I think the other side of it is, and Jonah's here in the room with us, as always, our fantastic producer and tech manager. And we have some just quality radio folks and IT folks that work for us in that division. And I know we've tried to build those relationships over the years, and it's been a struggle. So I'm hoping that with you in there, we can invite you and some of your folks down and sit with Jonah and his folks and our planning, logistics, and operations chief and talk about where can we support each other.
Perfect. Very kind.
So we have a backup dispatch console at our tech center, and I believe Jonah built a gateway or a path. I don't know. It's tech, so I don't know what you call it. But one of those things where they can virtual into that.
Right.
Should there be a problem in PRCC? Right. That way they don't have to travel. And so it's those types of things as well as the radio things that I think we could work more closely on than we have in the past. As long as we can sit down in the same room and say, here's what we can offer, here's what we can offer.
And we appreciate it.
And yeah, up here, we are our only support. You know, we are all we have. Okay. Our backup is coming from an hour and a half away.
Okay.
And we need to make sure that those relationships, police, fire, dispatch, are together.
Absolutely.
Now, for me and my career, I actually did start when I got my EMT license in '93. As I started paramedic school, I started working for a dispatch center down in the city of St. Louis. And so I was an emergency medical dispatcher as I worked my way through paramedic school. So that was a long time ago, obviously, but I have an idea of what it's like to sit in that seat where the dispatchers are, and I understand that. I also understand that sometimes you sit in that seat and you feel like, is anybody listening to what I have to say? So I'm glad you're there for that. On the other side, we've had some really good luck prior to COVID.
We just need to put an asterisk on everything.
Stupid COVID.
Right.
And having our crews rotate through PRCC and spend some time at the dispatch center. And to an engine company, they've all come back and said, wow, I never realized. And what I don't want to do is spend too much time between when they're rotating through and visiting, because crews change out. And I want to keep those relationships up so that our folks in the field understand what your folks in dispatch are going through and vice versa. And if they have that relationship, it's all better.
And we're all such visual learners. If they want to come in and visit, that's absolutely fine. We enjoy that. We welcome that because, again, it's the face-to-face. They get the voice and they recognize it and they memorize it, and it would be nice to be able to just have that greater level of relationship.
Oh, Rachel, Armando.
Right.
You know, I know their voices when I hear them on the air. Billy, Desiree, we know, you know, we know those. We know. Now, I will say, I was driving home one night, maybe a month ago, and I sent Rob an email on this, and I was listening to a call go out, and I was listening to the interaction between the dispatcher and our engine company. And the flow was so smooth. And at one point, the dispatcher had me laughing.
I love it.
Because she just came back. She said, yeah, we'll just go with that. That works.
It works.
And in the context
plain
of
the
entire conversation, I'm like, oh, that's hilarious, number one. And number two, completely understand where she's coming from, what she's saying. And it just, I mean, it wasn't a big thing, but it just struck me as, wow, I don't know who's on the radio right now, but they're doing a fantastic job, and I think we should let Rob know.
And we so appreciate that, because that's where, to go full circle, they're not an add-on to public safety. They are the true first responders. They are part of the full loop. And as you and I have discussed before, is if we could create a culture in CAFMA, if we could create a culture in PVPD, in Prescott, all of the partners together, if we could create a culture out there that immediately when, say, a supervisor, a captain, a BC hears something along those lines, or let's say it's a long drawn out, they don't get the closure. And they don't get the closure that they've earned. You will never hear me use the word deserved. They've earned that by working that. And now they're on to the next call and the next call and the next call. Well, I know that drives firefighters nuts because they kind of want to know what happened here.
Yes.
It definitely drives police officers nuts. We make an arrest, somebody goes there, we don't know the final disposition through the courts or whatever else. Imagine you're only going out to the calls that they're sending you out on. they take so many more that are part of the everyday job.
Right.
And in doing that, I would love to create a culture where it just becomes natural for your leadership to pick up the phone, dial the plain old number that goes in there, whatever dispatcher answers, just say, hey, I was just a part of this. Here's what happened. Dad went to jail. Mom's going to the hospital. Kids didn't get sent out to CPS because grandma's in town, because they hear this stuff and they worry about it. Kids are taken care of. Mom's good. Dad's gone to jail. Fire has taken them. They treated them. They're on their way. Everything went great. Thank you.
Yeah.
They don't get that.
No.
And that's that closure that I'm really hoping to have. That I'm trying to come up with a saying, close the loop, close the gap, something along those lines. But once we can do that, it really brings them into the fold. Not just operationally, but emotionally. And it gives them perspective on the whole call, not just that front end.
Well, and we've tried, and I'm trying to instill this in our culture here. So if we run a bad call and we know we're going to do an AAR, an after action review, or a CISD, the first question I have is, did someone call PRCC?
Okay.
Did someone invite them to be part of this, to have the conversation? What do we need to do? And typically what I'm hearing, and it's becoming more standard, at least from what I've seen, is, yes, we did contact them. They're still on shift. They're doing well right now.
Good.
We've offered them the resources and the opportunity. And then between the supervisor and the dispatcher, they decide what they're going to do.
Okay.
But we try to close that loop with them. We try to make sure, especially on that, because we talk a lot about post-traumatic stress in firefighters and police officers, but I mean, dispatchers may not necessarily be right there on that scene, but they're on that scene.
Mm-hmm. Before everybody else is.
Before everybody else. They're the one taking the call, trying to make sense out of the chaos in the caller and get the appropriate units on scene. And all they can do is visualize. And sometimes what you see in your mind is way worse than what's on the scene, and other times it's not.
It's like reading a book and watching the movie. They have to create this movie in their head with every conversation.
Right.
And I would love for those to be a lot more happy ending movies that we're riding off into the sunset, and that it's not this apocalyptic call.
So, I mean, I think the good thing is, what people are hearing from us is we're on the same page.
Absolutely.
We want our responders and our dispatchers, responders on the street, responders in the dispatch center, lockstep. And we need to build that culture, that connection between the agencies. I'm on board with it, and
Absolutely.
I know you are. In talking with Prescott Valley PD, I know those folks over there, great people. I know that's what they want. So I think we're on the right track, and I think with you in that position, providing some of that needed stability for everyone involved and some consistency, it's just going to up the game that much more and provide a great environment where people want to come in to PRCC and go to work.
Correct. Thank you, sir.
That's what we all want, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming in today and being our guest. We're looking forward to working with you. Let's dispel a rumor one more time. Someone said, we heard you're only going to be here 3 months, but you're hanging stuff on the wall.
And I'm staying. I am on probation, but I'm staying.
You're on probation. So as long it won't be his choice.
Right. Thank you.
if he leaves, he's not trying to leave. He's here to try to help all of us,
but
specifically you folks in PRCC. Shout out to all of you. Thank you for the work that you do. We just had Telecommunicators Week. I apologize I wasn't able to get by, but thank you for everything that you do from the bottom of my heart and from our folks here at CAFMA. Until next week, maybe Chief Fedema, maybe not. We'll see.
Thank you again.
Absolutely.